Hey everyone, welcome to part 1 of the texturing tutorial. This part we're going to be doing this barrel texture set, and I already set up this quick just little blue material so that I can just quickly test that the textures are exporting properly and getting updated properly. So we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to mention is that this a lot of these references are kind of boring, to be honest. They're very clean and kind of flat looking, so it's kind of our job as game artists to kind of go above and beyond the reference. Like this reference is pretty nice, so I think we'll be using this reference right here quite a bit. Yeah, so if you already watched my stream, I did stream this before. So we're kind of taking some of these base textures and kind of elevating them to taking them to the next level, so to speak, by introducing some of my own details that I think look cool. And yeah, so we can probably just get started now. So first thing we'll start with is just a base material. So for the base material, we're going to make it black. If you look at some of the references, it kind of comes off kind of blue-ish. Maybe not these ones, but we're going to give it a very slight blue tint in the diffuse. So do something like that. Yeah, something like that I think will do good. Okay, now the gloss, we can lower it quite a bit. We're trying to match this highlight here, the size of that highlight, which we kind of got it right about there, I think is pretty good. Okay, so let's make a folder. Call this our black metal. Drag and drop that in there. Call this base 1, because we're going to be using different base materials for different breakup, which we can go ahead and do now once I black mask this folder and then just assign it to there. But looking at our reference, the inner barrel is silver, so we'll want to uncheck those. These can go in the black metal as well, so is this. I believe these screws are black metal. Yes, they are, so we can put them in as well. Anything that's basically this same sort of black metal, we want to just mask out real quick. We can go ahead and isolate it, see what we're doing. This screw as well can go in there. Cool. And now we can make another folder for the base silver. So this will be this silver metal that we see here. We can go ahead and do that really quick. That's just black in the diffuse and white in the specular. This is for spec gloss. Raw metals are usually always pitch black. Sometimes you'll have some weird in-between metals that require something that's not a pitch black diffuse, but for now we're just doing what I know, and right now we're doing pure black. So one thing we did want to make sure is that when we do a test export of this, this honestly looks about good right now. We want to make sure that we're not going too glossy with the metal, because if you go too glossy with it, we start getting really blown out lighting like this. We cannot render that. That's just too much. So we want to tone it down quite a bit from the reference. We want it to be close, but not. Doesn't have to be exact, but there we go. Let's go ahead and work on the silver first, and then we'll move to the black metal. So let me move around some references here. So we can kind of see some brushing going on. Yeah. So we've got some brushing going on along the barrel. So let's name this the base. I'll try to name my fill layers as much as possible, but sometimes I just forget. So next thing we're going to want to get is a Quixel. I'm using Quixel aluminum brushed. So this material is a Quixel material, which you can download online. You'll have to look at the Quixel material library. This can also be done with, maybe we should try it. We can try it this way. So let's do this instead. We can add a fill, and we can use Painter's default anisotropic. There it is. Painter's anisotropic noise filler. We can turn this up, and there we go. We get pretty much the exact same effect, really. So now we're going to set it to multiply so that I can paint where I want it, as opposed to painting it out. That's where I want it right there. So turn off the diffuse. I like to put brushing effects in the height and a little bit in the gloss. A little darker in the gloss. There we go. Let's see if we can. Not quite getting it how I like. I think I'm going to switch back to the Quixel material, actually. This is not quite working out how I want it to be. And Quixel materials are honestly something that you should consider downloading because they give you a much more realistic result. So let me type that in. Brush. There we go. Let's remove the mask, actually. Remove mask. You can see what we're doing. There we go. Yeah, it gives you like a nice noise as well as giving you the brushing effect. So we're going to stick to this. And we're going to apply it right there. We're going to turn off its diffuse and specular and just leave it in the gloss in the normal. Stuff that looks in the normal kind of tends to kind of look better as well. So these Quixel materials are all publicly online as well. So let's call this brush 1 because we're going to have a couple different brushing effects. So we'll have some in here as well, but we'll make it different so that it reads a bit differently. We'll just tone down the effect quite a bit. Maybe we'll turn off the gloss as well. We'll just have it subtle, very subtle in the normal. A little bit less, something like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks cool. I'm gonna tone down the gloss just a bit. Okay, there we go. I think that'll look much better. Yeah, cool. All right. And then one thing you'll notice about these metals is they have kind of a noise to them, so we can use one of my favorite materials, which I don't know is out on the market anymore, but it's called Quixel plastic computer plastic. If you're familiar with my streams, you've seen me use it a lot, but we're gonna use it, or we're gonna use Perlin noise instead. So I'm just gonna grab 3D Perlin noise and drag it into the grayscale. There we go. And then we're going to scale it up, like, just crank it to like 5,000. There we go. I like to do that. And then we will put it subtly in the gloss and the height. So something like that. Height, we're going to grab the slider up here. Sometimes it's easier to grab the slider up here than to mess with the height down here, but we're going to slowly turn it down quite a bit. Do we get something like that? Okay, that looks good. Rename that base noise. Cool. So honestly, we're pretty. Oh, this bolt here should be silver as well. There we go. So we're pretty good so far. See this noise? Let me see if we can. Okay, we could have gone, we scaled it up even more and that looks better, yeah. It's a really fine, subtle effect, but we want it scaled up quite a bit. Let's see if this brushing looks good if we slap it right there. It does look good. Yeah, that looks cool. So we'll slap that right there too. Okay, let's work on the black metal a little bit. So, clean metals, we want those to be pretty clean and shiny, so we don't really have to do much. We will come back to it though, but for now, we're going to work on the black metal a bit. Okay. So let's start with the diffuse. So how does the diffuse look in here? It looks pretty black. So we'll go a little bit more into the blue. Let's do this and crank it a little more. There we go. Something like that. Crank it down a little bit. Okay. Something like that I think will look really cool. Cool. Let's call this base diff 2. Cool. So now we have another diffuse that we're going to work with, and we're going to do some material breakup. So you can color pick the blue there, but we can go a little bit darker. And the reason I'm doing this is because in some of these references, the site kind of looks darker than the actual base metal itself. And this is what we do a lot of the times in game art, is we exaggerate these details. So material breakup like this looks great, and we love to do stuff like that. So fixing an error there. So material breakup like this in all the channels. So the diffuse is different. The gloss will be different, which it doesn't even, so even something as subtle as like this will read really nicely. And that's just something that we do for games. Cool. So what does it look like if we do that? Maybe we'll try more matte. Let's try more matte this time. Okay. Let's do another diffuse layer. Let's assign this one to these bolts here. And these are symmetried, so we don't need to worry about those. Just to save time, we can also assign it to that one. No real reason with that. Maybe we shouldn't, actually. This one's supposed to be a matte. I'm making these. I'm following this reference right here for these bolts. We're going a bit glossier. So, there. Something like that. And then the diffuse, we will go a bit brighter and less saturated. Darker. We'll do something like that. There's a lot of stuff we're going to do to it later, so we will keep that going for now. Let's add another diffuse layer for this site right here. This is a dark black. It looks almost darker than all the metals, really. We'll make that a dark black with matte finish. Cool. Looks great. So it's the material breakup that really helps these things shine. So I noticed this bolt here is kind of funky. This little screw down here. To find the exact reference. So I've done this on stream before, but I decided I'm gonna redo it, but kind of change some things. So we're gonna, a couple of things that I was doing when I was testing these textures first is I kind of did this. I grabbed a black diffuse, I added a paint layer, because I want to paint it right here for the main body. We're already masked out there, so we don't need to worry about the barrel. Then what I was doing is I was grabbing a UV border generator. UV border generator. Set it to multiply, so we're just on the barrel. Set it to invert, so we get kind of this effect. And this was actually looking pretty cool. I did this on the main metal that we have going on. And it actually looked really nice, so I'm going to do it to the barrel as well. Something super subtle like that. Yeah. This looks cool. This looks really cool. I don't think it's going to show up super, like, be super obvious in the render, but it'll be there. It'll be there. Okay. Then let's mess with the gloss just a tiny bit. Cool. Let's work with this. Let's see what we can do with this. Okay, so UV diffuse, we'll call it that. That's just something that I've been experimenting with, is doing just something to help break up the material a bit more and help it feel a bit less flat. Clients, when you're working in the industry, typically don't really like a lot of this stuff, but this is for portfolio work, so we're trying to just make absolutely the coolest result possible. So next up, we're going to work on the normals. So grain 1. Oops, grain 1. Okay. Let's see how if we duplicate this down here, let's just duplicate the Perlin. Oh, cool, that worked. It automatically made the black mask for me. That's cool. All right, so we have this Perlin noise now. In the diffuse, it's kind of there. It's a little too strong. Putting too much noise in the diffuse makes things feel kind of fake when you look at it from a certain angle. So let's bump up the height. We have the height going on this? We do not have the height, so we're going to turn the height up a bit. And we're going to use the sliders to adjust just a tiny bit. Let's add a filter, a sharpen filter, to see if we can get a bit more. There we go. That looks a bit better, I think. Do that. Let's see how that looks in the render. Cool. It's very subtle, but it's there. Cool. All right, so one of these references had, you can see these really thin lines going across. This is something that I've really liked doing recently because it adds quite a bit of interest to it. So I'm just going to grab stripes. This is a default painter fill layer. And then we're going to crank it. And then rotate it 45? Yeah, 45 degrees. That gives us the vertical stripes there. And then what I'm gonna do is, it stops at 32, but if you put it in like 50, it'll still go higher. I wanna make it look right about there, actually, that looks great. Actually, maybe a little less. Cool. Let's add, so it's slightly in the gloss, which we like. And then it's also slightly in the diffuse, which is a bit strong. So I'm gonna turn it down. There we go. We'll add it a bit to the height, and then we will mess with the height layer. Cool. I'm gonna add a very slight warp to it to make it feel not so perfect. So with these warps, I like to go to the 100 intensity divider and just give it a slight warp, just a very slight breakup like that. I think that looks great. Yeah, something like that. Cool. Cool, so we're gonna do that. I'm gonna add a paint layer so I can multiply it where I want it to. Let's call this vertical stripes. Actually, oh, so I made a mistake. So the UV directions are different on both sides, so I actually need to planar project this. And then grab our gizmo here and just rotate it 90. So now it's planar projecting the same thing on both sides, and then we can crank it up to how it was, which needs a bit more, so 200. About right there, yeah. And we got the same result, so that looks great. And now I want to paint it and add a multiply. I kind of want to paint it just where I want it, which is on this UV shell and this UV shell over here. Just like that. Now, if you kind of look, it's kind of horizontal down here. So I'm going to actually mask, I'm going to turn on symmetry actually, which I actually need to set up. Mirror. Where's my symmetry spider one? This is kind of weird. I don't have my, oh, I need to press Q, duh. So let's quickly just set up a really quick symmetry. There we go. Save us some time so we can mask out this right here. I like to have a soft fall off so it's not like sharp and like obvious like that. I like to have a little soft fall off so it's like kind of a gradient almost. We'll do that. Continue this down to here. I like to do this to just kind of add some more breakup to it. Let's remove it there, there. Okay, let's see what it looks like on this side. This side we'll want to remove it from here. Turn off symmetry so we don't get any glitches. There we go. Do that. And then it's also on the inside here, so we can just quickly select that, get that out of there. Cool. Let's add a little fall off here as well. This could be symmetried. Quick. You could also use a UV border generator to do this. That might have actually been a smarter option than what I did, but since we're there, you know, we might as well just do it. So, cool. Now let's duplicate this and make it horizontal. Horizontal. There we go. Stripes. Rotate it 135. That gives us horizontal using this specific fill there. Delete the multiply. We're going to reapply another one. Add a multiply. Paint out everything, but we're going to manually paint in some of these horizontal stripes. Excuse me. There we go. Cool. This side has a bit more surface area that I need to paint on. Cool. And we also planar projecting, so down here that's going to look a little weird. So I'm wondering if I can switch to UV actually. Let's see. Horizontal. No, we need to still planar project. Cool. So we got that going. So one thing I will mention is that I've noticed that a lot of juniors and students trying to learn is that they forget about the height channel, you know, and the normals, you know. So this is something that I always talk about this on stream, but it's something that I think a lot more people need to pay attention to. Just work on it a bit more because it really leads to a lot more detailed work and helps things, the cool factor, you know. And here we go. Let's turn down the height on these a little bit. Cool. I also want to just paint out, one thing I will do is I'll add a fill and I'll use something like one of this default textures. It's called Grunge Fingerprints Dry. I'll use that to just kind of as another multiply layer just to break things up even more. So we'll do something like that, but we'll just kind of leave it. Yeah, adds a lot more breakup to it. We'll actually do that to the same vertical stripes as well. Yeah, okay, that looks really cool. Nice. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to turn down the gloss of the barrel real quick. Just a bit too much. Okay, and then we need to turn down the UV border diffuse. Just turn it down just slightly. And then these are supposed to be pretty subtle right now. They're a bit too strong, so I'm going to change to the gloss channel. We're going to tone it down just a bit and a bit more here. The grain is also too strong in the diffuse, so we're going to, or the gloss, so we're going to do that. And let's see what we get from there. So the effect that I really want to create with this project is when you view it from a distance, it looks pretty clean. And then when you really zoom in, you get a lot of the micro details, which is kind of what I'm noticing with some of these modern guns, is they're kind of like that. You know, you zoom out, you don't get a whole lot. Then you zoom in and you get a lot more detail. I am going to turn up the diffuse. It was a little too dark for this particular render. I've done a few test renders with this lighting and I really like this lighting, so I'm going to kind of go with it. I think probably for the rest of the tutorial, I think. I'm going to turn down the blue just a tiny bit. And then let's see how this looks. Okay, I think that looks good. And with that, I need to turn up this diffuse a bit as well. Just a very subtle breakup that you can really see right there. Very nice, I like it. Oops. Okay. Now we got kind of the normals going. There is one other thing that I wanted to add, but I think we'll save that for last. So now we can go ahead and I think we can start doing some gloss variation. So these, I'm just going to color code to help separate some things. So we're going to do gloss variation 1. So I'm not going to put any of it in the diffuse just yet. We might try something later, but I'm going to crank up the gloss, add a black mask, add a fill, and I'm going to add this same grunge fingerprints dry down here, and yeah, so we're gonna do this, and we're just gonna kind of crank it. Whoa, I need to grab the layer, crank it a little bit. We can get something sort of like that, just so it's not all over the place. I'm gonna try a generator, try to add a dirt generator, and then I'm just gonna subtract. We can kind of just, it removes it from some areas, and I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, we're gonna add a lot more, so we can go ahead and start actually manually painting in. We're gonna set it, make sure you set it to linear dodge add. And we can start painting in some oils. So a couple of references had really cool oils like this, which we're saving for the body of the gun, but we can kind of just add some where we feel like they should be. So one area that I know they exist actually is in the base silver. So if I take this gloss and I duplicate it up, we should get some nice gloss variation in the silver. We are not getting... Oh, because this dirt generator is subtracting. Yeah, there we go. We got some oils there, and then we can actually add a paint layer. We can paint in some of these oils, and these are... I thought these were symmetried. I guess they're not symmetried, so we'll do this and we will paint in our oils. Let's lower the stroke opacity and paint in just some subtle stuff like this. Yeah, just like that. And we'll do this down here. So one thing to point out is when you increase the gloss of something, you also darken it. So it's kind of creating the same effect that we want, but you're also just darkening things. So that is important to remember. If things are too glossy, they become kind of too dark, which is kind of what was happening to the barrel actually. So I lowered the diffuse, right? Increased the diffuse a tiny bit and then lowered the gloss of it a tiny bit. So here I'm just using the standard brush to paint. This is kind of what I've noticed that I like doing. It's just, you don't really need to stencil a lot of oil, I don't think. Some oils are very specific, which we will stencil later. But like stuff like this is just, like if you look at real guns, this is just how oils tend to leak, just like this. You can see this right here, just looks like a standard brush, you know. You don't need to go super crazy and get all these incredible stencils just to paint oils. Sometimes you will need to though, like some guns have very specific patterns that you need to replicate in order to get it looking just right, which I have my stencil library that I got from textures.com that I tend to use. So let's see how that looks in the render. I'm just pressing Control-Shift-E to quickly export, by the way. Let's increase the gloss, or decrease the gloss of the barrel real quick. See how that looks. Let's lower the specular. Let's try lowering the specular. So for games, speculars usually will be up here for something. For silver metals like this, but because we're using my own lighting setup, we're going to lower the specular to see kind of what we get. So that the lighting doesn't look super blown out. So this looks great. This looks really awesome. So we can, it's not totally white, but we're also getting some nice dark values in there too. So this looks pretty cool. Yeah, that looks great. I'm noticing in the reference it looks a bit cleaner. So I think what I'm going to do actually is go into Painter. Maybe you should try. So I like the noise on the barrel, but I don't quite like it here. We're going to go for a bit of a cleaner look on these inner parts here. I wanted to read. There we go. So just to get a bit cleaner, and then I'll do this. I will tone down the brushing quite a bit, so we get a much cleaner visual appearance. Next thing I'll add is gloss variation, but the other way. So we'll do like dirt. So this, just kind of the same thing. I'm going to duplicate this fill there. We need to rotate it so we're not masking directly on top of each other. And we kind of already have a pretty decent effect there. Let's see how that looks in the render. Cool. So it's a little blurry, like we can kind of see it's just kind of a bit blurry. So we're gonna increase the scale and maybe add a filter. Quickly add a little bit of a sharpen filter. It's really important to not overdo sharpen filters. They will ruin your work like instantly. If you overdo a sharpen filter, it will absolutely ruin your work. They're just very subtle to kind of get like the edges to be a bit less blurry. Lower the contrast a bit. Something like that. See how that looks. Okay, that's a bit better. It's pretty good. Although it just kind of bothers me that we're not matching the reference a bit closer here. So I'm gonna actually duplicate this base metal layer, apply it there, and then just increase the gloss a bit. So take the gloss, just crank it up a tiny bit. Just tiny nudge it. There you go. Sometimes I really want to follow reference and then sometimes I don't. So it's kind of like a push and pull of what I want to do and what I don't really want to do. So okay, let's take the dirt. Let's add a paint layer. There's like a couple of shapes here that I'm not liking. We're just gonna undo them. Just like that. I want kind of the speckly stuff. I want to keep the speckly stuff in there. Then I'll just add a few manual little dirt splotches. Something like this. A lot of people ask me if I'm using a drawing tablet, by the way. I am not using a drawing tablet. I've just kind of like gotten so used to just kind of like shaking the mouse while I kind of just paint in different stuff there. Cool. One other tiny thing I'm noticing is I'm not sure if it's just the camera, because we got kind of like a chromatic aberration effect going on, but we kind of see like some yellowish oils and stuff. So let's see if we can replicate that a little bit too. This is dirt. So let's do sort of like yellow oils. Let's crank the diffuse to yellow. Increase the gloss a bit. There we go. We might have to do some experimentation with this, so I think we're going to use our first stencil here. And the stencil I'm going to grab is let's use this. This is a default painter. There's actually an alpha that they use, but sometimes the alphas make pretty good stencils too. So we're just going to paint in a bit of yellow and see how we can change it to where it looks good. So the diffuse isn't really working out. So let's try the specular. I think the specular is where it's at right here. Yeah. Let's see if that shows up in the render real quick. It's very subtle, but we can do a bit more to it. No, it's not quite looking right. I think the specular needs to be the darker side of yellow, right there. Yeah, it's subtle, but it's kind of there. So we'll just do a really quick job and just paint in some really subtle yellowish. We probably won't even see these, but it's just something that's there, you know. There we go. Let's do one right here. No stencil really, just kind of use a little stencil like something like that. Just to add a bit of color to the metal. Nothing fancy. Okay. Let's see what the gloss looks like. Okay. So for these oils, I'm just going to turn it down a slight bit right there. For the base, I'm going to actually just revert kind of what I did. Okay. I think this looks pretty cool. Yeah, I think that looks great. All right, so we'll take a break from the barrel, or from the silver now. Next, we will do some gloss variation on the black metal. Take a sip of water. There we go. So we already had this layer going, right? Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do some manual painting. So I don't really have any theory behind these right here, other than just something that just looks kind of interesting to break it up a bit. I feel like maybe there's, I don't know, there's a lot of oils around here, so maybe some of the oils got out here, you know, something. That's what I'm thinking. We always do oils around these bolts too. These are always really big thing that we do. So I'll kind of just do that, then just paint out that. There we go, something like that. I just realized we're symmetried, so that's gonna look kind of weird over here. Yeah, do that. Okay. So let's do the other. Let's do some dirt now. Do this. Let's do that. That. Okay, we can do something like that to start off with. See some very slight dirt in there. Cool. Let's actually, before we move on, I wanted to do this actually. These, so there's some specific references that I looked at where they had like, where is it? Right, like here, you can really see, I think these are all oils, so we can sort of mimic that effect here, I believe. Glossiness, there we go. Symmetry this. So we're kind of doing this really subtle gloss effect. Cool. Something like that. Pencil in some more sharper oils. So I call these like soft oils, and then I call these sort of like sharp oils, like something like that. We'll leave that there, but I want to make sure it's different on both sides. Some of the obvious details like that, I want to make sure that it's different on both sides. So do that. Okay. We have a decent base so far. Let's see how that looks. Constantly exporting back and forth always helps a lot. That looks really cool. This looks really great right here. I do have a setup where I can see the top of the rail here. And so let's add some more details up here. One thing I am going to add, so on really obviously milled shapes like this, like it's just nice subtle curve, I like to add a bit of stripes. We're gonna grab these horizontal stripes. We're gonna undo that. We're gonna paint them here. We got the same on both sides. That's great. So we can add a generator. UV border generator. Set it to subtract. So we can get kind of this effect. And then we're gonna take off the grunge. Yes, just like that. We're gonna tone up the height a bit. This effect looks really great. Rotate the stripes just a tiny bit. Get more surface area. Yeah, this looks awesome. This stuff looks really great. It may not read from like super distance, but for something clean like this, I think it works. Yeah, that looks awesome. That looks really great. One thing I am gonna do, see we left out some normal stuff to do, so I'm gonna grab this brushing effect that we have up here. Control C, Control V it right there. Add a black mask. I'm gonna add it right here in these milled out cuts like this. And one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it to planar projection so we get the same projection on all of them. Then rotate, something isn't right here. Projection settings. Yeah, rotate the X value so we get the brushing going up on all sides like this. So let's change it so it's like right there. That's what we like. Cool. So this may not exist in the reference, but this is something that I do to go beyond the reference, because I think going beyond the reference is just as important as using reference. That's probably one of my biggest takeaways from this tutorial series, honestly, is going beyond the reference and coming up with your own cool, unique ideas that that really just look cool. I mean, that's what we do. We're artists, you know, so we got to make cool stuff. I want to add some vertical milling right here because I saw it in a reference earlier. Sort of right here, where... Okay, I paused it to find the reference so you guys don't get bored out of your mind. So this reference, you can sort of see the horizontal milling, but it's like really just in this one area. So we're going to replicate that as well. So I'm going to activate symmetry just to kind of help me out here. Increase the opacity, undo that. I'm just going to I'm going to undo the symmetry and just kind of do this. Turn off the UV border distance. Lower the stroke opacity. Yeah, something like that looks really cool. Turn back the opacity, do this, do something like this. We'll do, oops, turn it down. Tone it down right here. Here I'm just spam clicking. You can probably hear me just spam clicking. Sorry about that. You can probably hear my mouse, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Something like that. That looks awesome. Let's see what that looks like in the render. Nice and subtle. I like it. Then here we're gonna add really slight brushing in here. I think that'll be a cool idea. Cool detail, I mean. So let's add that. Let's add it here. And this got UV'd a bit weird. That's kind of a mistake on my end. We gotta delete these. Bakes turned out fine, but that was kind of an oversight on my end. Normally I would just go horizontal with the brushing, but it kind of looks cool if vertically like this. Maybe we'll leave that. Maybe we'll leave it like that. We'll turn down the gloss on it so that we don't get that super shiny stuff. And same in here, actually. I'm going to turn down this gloss as well. I meant to do that. Just like that. Okay, I had to pause because the train was coming by, so we added that brushing. Now let's just kind of start working on getting the material to just kind of read, for lack of a better term, cooler. So one thing you'll kind of see is the edges are kind of highlighted, so we're going to kind of do that. But there's a big caveat to this. I'm just going to use a metal edge wear generator. There's a big caveat to using energy generators like this. They're super easy to use to just get like edge stuff going on. They're also super cheesy and super CG looking. So we use these very sparingly when we work. A lot of clients don't do it anymore. So I'm gonna just grab like a texture like Grunge Fingerprints Dry. I like to use this one. So I'll just do this, increase some contrast, and just kind of just help things not look so uniform. So now we can, honestly, we can barely see it, so we can crank it up a bit, but we're gonna do something like take the specular, increase the specular just a tiny bit along the edges. We'll increase the gloss a tiny bit. On the metal edge wear, turn down the grunge too. So we'll just kind of be very careful using details like this. These will also ruin really good work too. So just have a very subtle specular highlight on the edges. And you can kind of see it too. If you toggle it on and off, you should be able to kind of get a feel for how it looks, the difference that is. Cool. So it's not readable, like as an edge generator. So that's what we want. Is overall we want things to not look like we made them in Substance Painter, even though we are, because we are cool. So we'll call this slight edge highlight. I spelled highlight wrong. You will spell it correctly, I'm sure. Okay. One thing I did want to do is work on this piece a bit more. So, oh, look at this reference. This reference is really nice. You can see all these little height things. We're definitely going to add those, and we're going to add those to the barrel as well. Make it all to help kind of tie everything in. Cool. So, one thing I will add is some diffuse variation. So right now our diffuse channel looks kind of bland. So we will, I'll just color code these glosses as yellow, green for the diffuse variation. We'll go dark for now. Maybe a bit less in the gloss too. We can kind of get like a 2-for-1 kind of thing where we make dirt as well as diffuse variation. And one thing I want to do is burn the barrel. So right here where the bullet comes out, there's a big muzzle flash and smoke and gases all come out. So we kind of like to do stuff like this on the barrel. Cool. Do the same over here. Again, just using kind of the standard brush. Just kind of going at it. Cool. Looks cool. Same here as well. So there's like a slight gap in how the gun was made, so I imagine some sort of gases probably come out of there as well. Maybe it's in the reference somewhere, but yeah, you can kind of see a little bit here. Actually, these are oils, so maybe we'll just do a bit of like this, maybe. Like this. Cool. Maybe we'll use a bit of a stencil to oops. Make a new paint layer. Oh yeah, don't paint on black mask. I just did it, but because I forgot to add a new paint layer, but it's not usually a good idea to paint on a paint layer like that, or a black mask like that. Use a paint layer instead, less destructive. So let me turn that up so we can. Now I have to go back to the black mask and unpaint some of this stuff. Cool. Just some variation of the sort. Let's add a bit right here, maybe. what it looks like around these bolts like that. That might look cool. Doing a soft paint job. So one thing is this thing looks really weird because it's all soft details. We're going to tone those down quite a bit. Okay, so now we can grab some stencils. Let's grab Grunge Fingerprints Dry just to kind of paint in. Let's add oh, this is already set to linear. Well, actually, we need a new paint layer. Set it to linear dodge add. Kind of do something like that. Looks really good. That looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, this Grunge Fingerprints Dry is such a good fill layer. I love it. I love using this one. Some really subtle, like finger smudgy kind of shapes. Really cool. Really nice highlights too. Paint some in here. Really no rhyme or reason, just kind of painting them where I kind of feel like they would look cool. Let's export real quick. Always make sure you're constantly exporting. Looking good, looking good. Okay. Right. We do need to work on this a bit more, so let's add some specks. So in the diffuse, there's oftentimes little, like, oh, here we go, we can see it. These little tiny little hairs here. So this is the first David Goyer grunge that I'm gonna use. Fingers. No, it is called hairs. Hairs. So these, I highly recommend picking these up. These are so good. This one's a bit too strong. We'll try this one. That one's a bit strange. I don't like that one. Not that one. We'll look at this one. This one looks great. Yeah. So you can see there's kind of like some grayish values. Maybe we'll leave those. We'll see. Turn these to white. There we go. Then let's add a levels because it is definitely too strong. Okay. Let's one thing I did forget to do is scale it up. All right, now let's actually redo the levels because that changed quite a bit actually. Okay. Yeah, that looks really good. That looks good. Let's paint in some light shapes. Let's paint in actually some stuff like this. Try these and then like lower the paint. Okay, that looks cool. On areas that are really like kind of exposed, like the tips of these sites, I like to kind of just wear out a little bit, add like a really nice gradient to it. We'll do something like that, maybe something down here a little bit too. Maybe something like this a little bit. Looks a little splotchy right now, but we'll tone it down a bit. So let's see how that looks in the render. Yeah, that looks really good. Actually, let's go a little stronger actually. It just slightly something more visible like that. Actually, I have an idea. Let's actually just take this off. Let's take this off. Apologize for the back and forth, but I mean, I think it's kind of helpful to see, you know, you're seeing my mistakes sort of, you know. So let's turn up the specular. Let's do spec software. And let's actually do it in the specular. So actually we should get more of a highlight up here as opposed to, and let's take it out of some things, like we don't need it here, here, there. Just kind of want it up there. Yeah, just like that. So this looks already pretty sick, but it's a little strong. So yeah, that's what we want. The diffuse was looking too flat. There we go. That looks awesome. Yeah, that looks so sick. Let's do this kind of in the middle, like barrel here too. See how that looks. Let's see how that looks. Break it up a bit. Yeah, this looks cool. This looks awesome. It looks really cool. When the highlights shine on, you can really see it. It looks awesome. Okay. One thing I'm going to do is with these bolts, just kind of wear them out a little bit by adding some specular color to them as well. Do something like that. What else should we do? It's already looking pretty good. Let me export this area where we're at. You can sort of see it. It's subtle, but it's there. All right, let's do some scratches. Let's do spec scratches. So these, I'm going to make sure that we use a black diffuse and a white close to white specular. We'll increase the gloss on it a bit because I want to see how it looks, but we're going to add some scratches. So I did these in the past with a really cool, let's try for a stencil, let's try these. These are Daguerre's Hair's fibers. No, those are too much like little fibers. So we'll try maybe something like this. This is a custom stencil that I use that you can find on textures.com. Let's add a filter. Add a sharpen filter. They're just kind of too soft. Okay, we can do that. We can work with that. Paint in some nice little scratches. Try something else actually. Try a different. I wonder what happens if we use this. We get too much kind of noisy type stuff. Although if we do this, we get kind of this. This looks kind of cool. We can try this out. You wouldn't really find scratches in these crevices like that, so it'd be more in the more exposed areas. See how that looks. This one looks really cool. These ones look good. These ones look cool too. They're kind of directional. They add some sort of like a storytelling element to it, which is what we do. Visual storytelling is a big part of what we do. So that's some very subtle like edge chips here on the barrel here, the tip of the barrel. So with these, I like to grab a brush that's like 0.05 in size, and then just kind of paint in some stuff, scratches. Let's turn down the gloss on it a bit, and turn down the sharpen filter just a tiny bit. It's getting a little too much. Let's go a little higher. Let's add a paint layer above the sharpen filter actually. I can do this. There we go. Something subtle like that. Is that a scratch here? Okay, something very subtle. Okay. So there is a lot of trial and error in textures, which is why it's a lot of back and forth between Marmoset and Painter and stuff. It's a lot of back and forth. So let's add some wear on these bolts here. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to set the normal mixing mode to normal. And that gives us the height to normal. And then let's add the height channel. There we go. So I want to remove the grain where the metal wear is, and then just add maybe like a super subtle height to it. Turn down. Actually, so I want the height channel up, but I want to micro adjust that. So it's very subtle. There we go. Just sort of paint in whatever kind of wear we think looks cool. Autosave. There we go. I think we'll keep it super subtle. I don't want something like this is a bit too major. Something like that, just to add like a hint of, you know, a hint. And then the height, I want to turn it down a bit. One thing I will add down here, I will use, well, let's try something. So I want to add some of those specks in the height that we had earlier. So I'll add it to the height, turn down the, maybe turn down the gloss on it too, add a fill there. Let's try this. Something that gives us some spatters, like some splatters, you know. Some unevenness in the surface. I think the gloss is kind of so something like that, yeah. And then I'll manually paint in some stuff. So I don't know where these details that I'm about to do just came from, but they looked kind of cool when I did them on stream. So it's just grabbing the height, grabbing another paint layer on top of it, and just making these really subtle, soft brushes, sort of. This adds like a nice soft, like pillowing kind of effect. Again, not sure where it came from in the reference, but I think it's something that just looks kind of cool. And helps like visually break things up a bit more. The height, that is. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to remove some of this spattering up here. A tiny bit. Same on this side, just a teeny tiny bit. There you go. And we'll paint in some stuff. I think I'm going to turn off the gloss actually, because it's kind of interfering with some other layers that we've had. Not really liking this here. So I'm going to paint it out. Put it more sort of right there. There we go. Okay. Gonna paint out some of these, kind of just looks kind of repetitive, so we paint out a bit, and then I'll paint in some of these cooler brushy pillow shapes. Again, just using a soft brush. I rarely ever change my alpha, by the way. I almost never do. I don't know why. I mainly will stick to stencils, or if it is really needed, I will change my alpha. But for the most part, I'm just kind of a standard brush warrior. Cool. Let's see what it looks like here. By the way, what I'm texturing here is it's going to be in the final renders on ArtStation, so this tutorial covers, you know, how to make that, how I made those textures, just in case it was not clear. But I'm going to decrease this amount a little. It's a little too strong, kind of interfering with some of the other stuff. I made it a bit smaller. Cool. I think I'm gonna go. What should we do? What should we do? It's already looking quite good. I think I'm gonna fix some of these brushy glosses. I don't know which one's affecting it. Is it this? This one is affecting it quite a bit. No, we will. This one. This one's just really not looking that great in the render, so I'm gonna just kind of remove it. And then here we're gonna kind of paint in that oil shape that we saw earlier. Actually, I don't know how that's gonna. That might look really weird. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna like kind of read properly, so maybe we'll just kind of do that. Well, maybe. Okay, we'll leave it something like that. That's a little too bright right here, so we're gonna turn that down, add a paint layer. Yeah, that's. If you go too white, you start getting like mirror surfaces on your gun, and it just kind of looks really weird. So we'll do that. One thing I am noticing is that the specular kind of has like a reddish highlight to it. It's probably just the lighting, but it's something that we can kind of maybe try and replicate. Super subtle red. You can very subtly see it. And let's see what it looks. Looks pretty cool. I think we'll roll with it for now. If I do end up changing something, I will try to go back and explain it so that you guys aren't just totally left in the loop, you know? Let's tone down the saturation just a tiny bit so it's a little less obvious. So you gotta be really looking for this one to see it. And we'll do something like that. Cool. One thing I will do with these spec scratches is I'll add a black mask, add a fill layer. And I'll just do something like this. Contrast. Just to kind of add a bit of noise to it. Although that doesn't look great. It's not looking great with that one. Let's try this one, Grunge Leak Dirty. We'll try that one. This one looking. Let's turn it up so we can see what we're doing. Okay, I think I'm gonna use David Grurier's one of David Grurier's here. We want specs. Something like this. Oh yeah, something like this. Yeah. So add a levels to it so we can kind of edit it, and then we can kind of do. So we grab out, discard the gray values, turn it up a bit so we can get something like that. Levels, let's lower the overall shapes there, do something like that. specular, cool. For the sake of breakup, I'm just gonna add a edgeware generator and subtract. Just for the sake of adding some quick and easy breakup. You do something like that, cool. So we're getting a bit dirty. I just realized we're getting pretty... Actually, well, how's it look in the render? We can judge it from the render. Because I don't want things to be too dirty. I want things to be relatively clean. This is looking pretty good. This is looking really good. If you zoom out, we're going to get a really clean, minimal wear sort of use. Like we took this to the range a couple times, you know? One thing I did want to do is this is just a lot of these like sort of miscellaneous stuff I just kind of do on top here. So I wanted to add a bit of height to more depth to these screws. So I guess I kind of made a mistake in modeling them. They're just not really, they don't really have the right depth and they're sort of baked in. So what's going on here? Oh, the opacity needs to be up. I want to add a little hole right there in the middle, little dot. Turn off everything but the height. Rank the height all the way down. Then add a filter. Add a bevel. So we get sort of that. And then add a filter, add a blur. Oops, not another bevel. Add a blur. We get something like that. That looks kind of bad, so we're going to take off that. We're just going to add the blur instead. There we go. So that adds a lot more depth to the screw. It makes it look a bit more real, yeah. So just something that's quick and dirty, kind of a hack almost. Something that's just like, if you forgot to model it in, you know, it's something that you can just quickly just kind of fix. I just realized these are not looking correct, so we need to find these horizontal stripes and we need to actually, oh, so we have multiple stripes, we're like crisscrossing almost. Need to remove that and just add that. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so now so we're looking pretty good. Let's add some sharp dirts, or sharp dirt shapes. After I add a few oils, actually. So I think right now we got pretty much everything where we want it to be. The diffuse is looking good. Yeah, the diffuse looks really great, actually. I think we'll add dust, oils, and dirt, and then I think we'll call this done, actually. So this is oils, correct? Let's just make a new layer. Call it oils 2. Crank the gloss. And we'll add some really sharp oil shapes. Oh, this reminds me actually. Fingerprints. That's something that we love to add. Those are finger. I believe David Gruyere has this really awesome fill layer called Dirt 01 fingerprints, and these are just awesome. This is just awesome. I mean, we could just slap this on, and we'll get some really nice finger oils. So we'll add a black mask. We'll paint it on. This is what the fill layer looks like. Got these really nice oils, just really great stuff. Yeah, so fingerprint right there, maybe something like that. We'll add maybe a nice fingerprint right here, something like that. So there was a big argument, kind of just on Twitter a while ago about fingerprints on guns, and a lot of people said, oh, fingerprints don't really exist like that, you know, it's not like this is just unrealistic, but it actually isn't. It actually is totally like this. You can take my word for it, or go to a shooting range and check out guns for yourself. But this type of stuff really does happen, like these finger oils and stuff. You really would be surprised, because shooting guns is very dirty. After a range day, you'll notice that your fingers are extremely dirty. So even just touching it will lead to stuff like this. So really nice breakup. Yeah, that looks great. Let's see what that looks like in the render. I like it. One thing we'll do is we'll sharpen it. This fill there feels kind of blurry a little bit, so we will sharpen. Get kind of a sharp shape to the oil. There we go. One thing I did actually forget was in one of these references. Yeah, right here, it really looks really worn out right here. So we can also add that too. That'll look pretty cool. And so I have a couple of theories on how we're gonna do it. So one thing I'll do is I'll grab another spec layer. I will turn up the spec. Something like that. And then we'll do sort of like this. Grab the height, set it to normal, so we can kind of paint out the horizontal striations, whatever you want to call it. And we'll just add some really subtle, it's really blurry, but we're going to try to add some really subtle shapes here to kind of wear it out. And like that. And then we'll take the specular channel, tone it down. So now in the render, we'll see it looks brighter there. It looks more worn out. Yeah, exactly. We'll go a bit brighter, just a tiny bit brighter. Cool. We'll add some of these colors into it. So spec, yellow spec, and we'll make it. We can color pick actually. We can color pick this like greenish, yellowish shape color. So we can grab the specular channel and color that in. I need to black mask it and color in there. Cool. And then it looks like there's a bit of red too, so we can duplicate this, color pick these reddish brownish areas. And with these, I'm going to decrease the gloss because I think that will look better. Actually, we'll just try this for now. It looks like the red also gets carried down around here as well, so then no stenciling, just kind of brushing it in. Let's see what this looks like. Quite good, I like it. What happens if I crank the gloss on it, actually? Maybe we should crank the gloss on it. See what that looks like. Something like that, so it has a bit less fall off. Break this up a bit more, something like that. Okay, had to take a tiny little break there. So we were working on this. Export, see how that looks real quick. And I think that's gonna do it for that. I think if I go any more, it's gonna look really fake, and if I leave it as is, it's really nice and subtle, but it's there, and it looks really cool. It adds really nice material variety. One thing I noticed is the height on these scratches looks real bad. So, did I do that? Right here. And take the height, set it to 0. Set it to 0. It just really isn't, excuse me, it just really isn't a detail that is going to show up, and it's just not going to work. So these oils here, let's add another paint layer. We're going to add these oils right here. We can kind of see it's really subtle. Fortunately, this is like a really modern gun, so there's not a whole lot of references for it, but oh, that's a lot. You want to lower the stroke opacity. Like that. Let's see how that looks. Oops, did I? Oh. Accidentally hit cancel. There we go. Yeah, that looks great. Looks great. Add it down here as well. I started doing this really soft oil effect because I was looking at my own rifle, and it looked, when I oiled it, you know, the oils would kind of leak in certain areas. It would just be very soft like this. So that's kind of my main reasoning for doing this. Let's add more oil here to make it more obvious. Cool, something like that. Add it here. So add a quick little stencil there to get that to be a bit more interesting. Something like right here. Cool. Great. Awesome. One thing I will do also, isolate the barrel. I think I saw in one of the references, quite in this one, but there's some oils kind of separating a lot of these shapes here. I'll add some of that too. Also, this is where the barrel is gonna be, so we're gonna also add a lot of oils here as well, around here, around these bolts right here. Add a sharp shape right here. Yeah, that looks cool. Sharp shape right there. Cool, cool. If I ever do like a render like this right here, then we'll be able to see it. One thing I did forget was the sight has stripes on it. Not there. Huh. I guess it's in a different version of the gun, but we're still gonna add it because it looks cool. So we'll just add it up here. Sight stripes. Add a black mask, add a layer. It on right there. And the topology actually works with me here. I can just, oh nice. Oops. There we go. Add a fill, set it to multiply, grab our stripes. Right there, import that. Set it to 45, because we get perfectly vertical horizontal lines. 45 and 135 are the values that work with this particular stripes fill that I use. That. Turn down the gloss. Let's see how that looks in our top-down render. Looks great. Oh yeah, that looks cool. That looks really cool. Okay. I think the last thing we're going to do is work up here to make this read a bit more interesting, because a render from up here would look pretty cool. So I think we've got just about the base weapon just about done. Or not the base weapon, but you know, sort of all this going down. Pause real quick and get reference of this bolt. Here we go. I knew I had that reference lying around somewhere. So it's kind of a reddish bolt, so we can work on that. I know I said I only had like 2 things left to do, but you know. That's how we do it. All right, let's go down to our base layers here and make a new layer for the bolt. Make it, grab the, let's grab the specular and try it in the specular. That's blue. I have to manually make this color a little bit. The color picker isn't quite helping me out. Something like that. Something like that. Then what we'll do is we'll grab the soft specular that we've done, and we'll kind of paint in some of the shapes that we see. So let's increase the opacity. Oh. Paint some down here too. We don't have a whole lot of res to work with, so honestly something like that will probably look good. Let's see how that looks in the render as well. Yeah, that'll looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. The brushing effect looks really cool. I like it. I like the difference between this and this metal. I think that's pretty cool. May not be very realistic, but I think it adds quite a bit to it to do that. Okay, so one thing we were going to do is we're going to work on the top a bit. I believe I have a better, there we go. I already have this imported. It's a vertical or a horizontal model. So I like to do this a lot. I didn't explain this, but this is super helpful for getting different angles, duplicate it to different orientations. Super helpful. Okay, I want to make a new folder just for top work. Kind of a dumb name, but I'm just basically going to be making this folder just kind of affect the top here. It's super easy. We can just mask in this. So we can just do that, and then we can do, now we can start working on some other stuff. So one thing I want to do is just kind of wear out the specular as if there was like someone put a sight right here, although I don't know if the realism is really there, but bleak. So I like to use this, it's an alpha called default. It's not, well, it's in the default painter, but it's called diagonal drips. I like to just paint in sort of this stuff and add a new paint layer. We'll call this top spec. So with this, we kind of want to make it really subtle. Add a sharpen filter to it, so it feels a bit, whoa, not a compare mask, add a filter, sharpen filter, because it looks a bit blurry. Not too much, just like that. And I did want to do one thing, so we can get really quick oils if we do increase the gloss, add a black mask, add a generator, do a dirt. And with this generator, we'll do something like that. We'll add a filter to it called the blur slope filter. This filter is super nice. This filter is great. Adds a lot of breakup really easily. Source parameter, I like to change the source tiling a bit sometimes. Then we'll add some fills on top of it, which I can duplicate from down here, the grunge fingerprints fill. Multiply it. And multiply. I did not click that. Now we got some really quick and dirty oils right there. Kind of see. Okay, my mask wasn't affecting the right area, so there you go. Now we should be able to see this in the gloss channel. There we go. So let's increase that a little bit. So we'll add a manual paint and we'll just kind of paint out some of these super bright areas. We'll leave a few, but another paint layer, set it to linear dodge, because I don't want to really add to it, not really take away what our dirt generator is already sort of doing. Something like that. So that looks... I'm going to remove some... Actually, before we do that, I'm going to remove some of this height noise. Where did I do that? Got to name that layer. Remove some of it, but I'll keep a bit of it. A tiny bit of it. Cool. And then one thing I will do is I'll add... This was our oils. One thing I want to do is kind of... These parts get worn out a lot, so I'll make the spec... Increase the spec and kind of just wear out some of the areas. Burn spec, there we go. Add a paint, set it to linear dodge add. Just kind of do like this sort of thing. And then we'll take the specular and turn it down. Just to get some nice surface variation. Something like that looks cool. Noticing we did not do all these. Okay. So we need to turn up the specular on these. Cool. See how this looks in the render. Very nice. That looks very nice. Let's add some really subtle scratches. Add black mask, add a paint. We'll call this scratch. So we'll use this. This looks cool. Just something like right here. Diffuse to black. Here we're doing like full-on metalware, so it wasn't really important for the diffuse to be black there, I don't think. Maybe it was. Let's see. Well, didn't make a huge difference, but so for the sake of PBR, we'll leave these as black to diffuse. Maybe we'll just tone it down, actually. Weird. Cool, something like that. That's fine. Not a huge deal. So these, I believe I turned down the specular. No, I didn't. Okay, so I actually made an error, which I just fixed. I changed this as opposed to changing the other layers down here. So now I need to go back. So I put this to 100, and now I need to kind of just reevaluate some of these other layers that so I need to tone down these instead. There we go. I was wondering why some of these scratches weren't showing up, and that's why, because I made a mistake. Corrected. There we go. Now these top scratches, these ones are a bit. Oh, there we go. These ones are. Ooh, no, not that. That's a bit much right there. Add a filter. One thing I noticed about some of these painter alphas are really low res. So I'll just add a quick little sharpen filter on top of it. Too much, just kind of something that does this sort of job. Set the height to normal. Yeah, so we get a smooth appearance to it. There we go. Adding a few more of these just painted in, stenciled in scratches and stuff like that. Just adding, some of them will just be kind of like specks like that right there. Some of them will be full on scratches like this. But we don't want to overdo it because otherwise it just kind of looks like too much like a game asset, you know, like we just kind of painted it in, so. But I'll add some specks along these. Let's see what this does actually. Let's do this. With these stripes, what we can do is we can chain, there we go. So we can turn on the spec on the stripes that we made so that we can kind of cancel them out and we get a more realistic like kind of scratch effect. So let's see how that looks. That looks kind of cool. So we're cool. One thing I will do, I'll tone down just some of them. A little too much. There we go. It's a delicate like balance a lot of the time. So one thing I would like to do is this chamfer right here looks like it kind of needs some brushing. So a bit more brushing to it. Let's get brush copy 3. I think we can UV it. I think they should be UV'd the same. Then decrease the scale. It's already unwrapped as a strip, so it follows it perfectly. Nice. Yeah, that looks cool. That looks really cool. Let's increase it so we get quite a bit of visibility in it. Yeah, I think that looks really cool. One thing actually as well that I noticed in one of the other references that I was kind of scooting past is you can really see sort of subtle brushing along these guys too. So we can add that here as well. It's all about making things look cool, and that looks cool. So it's a lot of these modern guns, I'm not a manufacturing expert, you know, but they're made to look kind of clean, and we, as game artists, at least me, that's why I prefer to texture older guns, because they have a lot more interesting kind of crappy manufacturing stuff, you know. But yeah, this looks great. I added a UV border generator just to kind of break up the edges a tiny bit. I think this will look pretty cool. It's kind of subtle, I like it. This brushing looks really cool. Let's add some brushing right here. I think some brushing could go well right there. So let's make, where am I? Let's make another brushing layer. Let's add it right there. A bit much. Scale it. It's a nice subtle effect right there. Cool. What if we did it right here? Maybe? Perhaps? Sure. Why not? Yeah. Cool. Let me analyze the references here and see what else we should add. Got some nice surface breakup. I think we need some more sharp oils up here. Actually, now that I just looked at it. That was quick. Why was this toggled off? Oh, because we added some oils to that, I think. Not sure why that's toggled off, actually. Let's add a paint layer and see what this does. That's dirt. Let's add some quick dirt up here while we're at it. So this is our oils, so we can go ahead and add some more oils. Add a paint layer, set it to linear dodge add. I don't really name any of these. I just find that just to be more tedious than anything. I know a lot of people will name all their fill layers and paint layers and stuff. I find it kind of tedious, so not really necessary in my opinion. There is sometimes where you should name them, like if you're doing heavy graphic work and stuff like that. So like I mentioned in the intro, we actually asked my, so while I do some just oils here, I'll quickly mention some stuff. So I did ask my Discord community, the Weapon Room, if they have any like other questions and stuff they'd like me to answer to kind of give more value and to bring more value to the tutorial and stuff like that. So I'm not just like grinding textures, you know, it's some other insights that I have. And one of them was a pretty hefty question. It was, what are some differences between actual game art, like for a studio, versus making stuff for portfolio? Because this person pointed out that a lot of these tutorials, they kind of just prepare you for making portfolio work, which is very true, actually. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of what I'm doing now. But so I think really when you get into the industry, a lot of clients, they'll kind of tell you what they want to see. You know, they'll have like sample files for you to look at, you know. So really, I don't think much should be done on your part as the student to be like really different, you know. Like, so this, for example, let me turn on the wireframe, is super dense. Like stuff like this that's modeled in would easily just be baked down in any game. Stuff like that, bolts like these could be baked down very, very easily, but I just chose to model them in. This one's baked down, but that's because it was a super subtle silhouette. But yeah, stuff like that would be baked down for a game. Much more optimization would be at play, but for portfolio, we're just trying to make the coolest work possible. So I don't think it's really important to look at like what actual games studios want from you. I think you should just make the coolest art and like the best looking stuff that you can for now, and then worry about, you know, when you do get hired, like they will have their requirements and their specifications that they need, you know. So if they need you to use their own material library, if they prefer certain details over others, they will they'll let you know, you know. So I think it is important to practice some things like PBR. I think it's important to practice proper PBR, because that's one thing that kind of stays the same, is you know, your specular values stay close to the linear default value, which is what we have here. So I think it is kind of important to practice some things, but really, I mean, a lot of these techniques are kind of the same, you know. There isn't a huge difference, I would say. And definitely don't worry about it too much. It is important to know for some interviews, I'm sure, but yeah. Okay. So just finishing up adding some more oils. This is looking really good. This is looking really cool. Spicy. Looking very spicy. It's dirty, but it's clean at the same time. And it's visible from a distance. I think this will look really great in a render setting. One thing I did want to do is, so I want to try something. So with this stuff, I want to take the specular and also turn it down. And I want to see what this does. It really gets like a really burned effect going, so let's see how that looks. It might look too dark in the render, but honestly, I think it's fine. Didn't really add much, but I think it added a little bit. Yeah, it added a little bit so that the highlights aren't as vibrant here, but I think I'll tone that down just a tiny bit. So it's not super obvious like that. Yeah. Cool. Trying to think what else we need. Alright. I'm gonna pause and then I'll get back to you. Okay, I think one thing I'm gonna add really quickly is just make these horizontal stripes a bit more noticeable. They're kind of getting lost here, and I think I have a bit too much of the height noise stuff. So I'll take these height specs and kind of... I went the wrong way. Kind of just remove a lot of them. So let's work on these stripes here. We have the height layer, I think is at 2. There we go. Tone it up a bit more. Tone down the grunge fingerprints so we get a bit more clean of a read. Turn these down a bit. I really love doing these. You'll notice in my portfolio I do this a lot. I think it just like, I don't know, it's just something that I just do that just looks kind of cool. I like it. Okay, let's turn down the height actually and have it be more in the gloss. I think that's more realistic is how it should be. It's really just a detail in the gloss, I think, so tone that down a tiny bit, just like that. I think an export, there you go. I think the oils will show up a lot better if we do that as well. Now, I'm not liking that at all, so we're gonna revert, go a bit brighter, and just kind of lower it slightly. There we go. I think that looks much better. Okay, another quick thing that I forgot to mention, or forgot to add, was this sort of radial brushing effect. So we're gonna try and get that in. So Painter has a radial anisotropic fill. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do a planar projection. Let's move it over here. So rotate it this way. Gizmo is really annoying to use sometimes. And I'm gonna crank it up. There we go. I'm gonna center it right in the barrel so we can see it. There we go. Awesome, something like that. And then I'm gonna do a paint. I don't want it to be right here along these edges. It looks kind of weird. Add to UV. I think I'll just have to. I can grab the polygons actually. We're gonna just do this real quick. Could have symmetried this actually. That would have been a lot better if I symmetried that, but. Why this is happening. Set this to multiply. There we go. There we can select these back. Okay, and then we can basically mark everything else. Now we're just dealing with this, right? Yeah, there we go. Cool. And then it looks like it's slightly off, so we can like that, do something like that. I'll clean up this edge around it by doing a quick UV border generator. Again, subtract. Love this filter. Do something quick and dirty like that. Sure. And we'll tone down the height ever so slightly. I think this kind of needs some manual cleanup, honestly. Grab this, grab a soft brush, and just brush it out. Go. It's kind of unnerving, like looking down the barrel of a gun. It's kind of unnerving, but... Alright, we need to do a bit more painting. These edges here. Unevenness is honestly not going to matter. It's completely not noticeable, I know that. There we go. We got some nice radial brushing. Fortunately, I don't think I have a render of the looking down the barrel, actually. Maybe we will this barrel, grab some of these barrel shapes here. Control duplicate, move it over. Do something like D. Come on, there we go. Gotta grab the bolt. Oh well. But that looks good. That looks really good. Yeah, I like that a lot. This looks good up here. It looks a little too much in the noisy stuff. Let's go back to the black metal. Lower these height specs quite a bit. Oh yeah, there's way too much here. Okay. Do that. So looking back, we have a lot of nice gloss separation. I think maybe we can even push that a bit farther by taking these guys and sight pieces and lowering those just a bit more. Get a bit more separation. I do like doing the separation and the gloss on the brushing parts. That looks really cool. There's also something that just kind of happened, but there also is some separation between these two parts right here, which I don't think is... that seam is not noticeable. Seam is not noticeable, we're fine. So that's cool too. That was kind of unintentional, but it just kind of happened and it looks nice. Actually, it was intentional. I meant to do that. I'm kidding, but... So that looks great. I'm gonna try increasing this worn speck effect, and I think we're honestly gonna call it done. I'm kind of just doing nothing here. You don't even really need to do this, but I think I'm just gonna kind of... something like here, maybe? Just to add a bit of more like contrast and a highlight and stuff. Something like that, yeah. Kind of a brushy little effect. Something like that, maybe. Kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, of details we can add. At least what I'm thinking right now. I'm sure when I finish this recording, I'll like come up with a million different ideas. That's the barrel. I think this is pretty cool. It's pretty subtle, so it's not really like... well, we can go even probably a little bit more subtle with it. Pretty cool. I think one other thing is like the final detail I like to do is like add a bit of color. So like, yes, finished. No, I'm just kidding. Just take like, just add some like red specks. Keep these subtle and very sparingly. Put the gloss on them, put the speck on them. Keep them super subtle. You can even go with a different color if you want. Like red. Red looks cool. I like red. No real reason for this, just something that adds like a bit more color to an overall, just, you know, the guns are just kind of black, so something to add a bit more to it. What's that? What do we do? We're getting real experimental here with what we're doing. Yeah, we can add some of these, yeah. Our diffuse channel does look a bit bare, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of just adding a few more details to it. Just kind of using the same stencil, it doesn't totally matter. It's just kind of like some dirtier, lighter shapes. Something like that. These are kind of things that you don't see when the highlight is shining on them. Like we can hardly really see it, but they show up a lot when the light isn't shining on them. So you can kind of see, you see the red really good there, but one thing is the barrel. This oil right here is like really throwing me off because it looks really dirty. So I will remove that. Don't know which paint layer I used, so yeah. Too much like contrast makes things look really dirty. So that's what I'm kind of doing right there, is I'm toning down the contrast so it looks a bit cleaner. Awesome. That looks really, I love this part. This part looks awesome. Probably like my favorite part to look at. Awesome. Let's try adding some dust. I remember saying I was going to do this, but I don't know if I don't think we tried it. Filter. Sharpen. Also, I don't even think we really need. Let's try it. Let's just try it anyways. Like a yellowish brownish color. That we should try Berlin noise, maybe 3D Berlin noise. Put that into add fill. 3D Berlin noise into our fill. Try cranking the scale pretty fine on it. Lowering the balance, increasing scale, increase the contrast. Bring this paint up, set it to multiply. Deselect everything, select where we want it to be. So something like around there. Something like here, and this little dirt builds up in these little crevices all the time, so we can try something like that. There would be some dirt probably here as well. Something like that, maybe. See how that looks. See how that looks. Really showing up. Why is it not really? Oh, because the gloss with stuff that you want to really show up, make sure the gloss is turned off or turned down at least significantly. Super subtle. It's super subtle still. Let's take the diffuse. Let's maybe, if you really want to quickly just bump it up, we can take a levels adjust and kind of turn it up like that. There we go. See how that looks. Cool. I think it's looking pretty good. I think it's doing pretty. To break it up even more, we can add Grunge Fingerprints Dirty on top of it, add a multiply. We're doing like a double multiply. Where's multiply? There we go. We're doing like a double multiply type of deal. Yeah, look at that. Breaks it up even more. That's cool. You can do just subtly in the crevices like that. Another micro detail. The key to doing clean stuff is micro detailing. So, stuff like this is going to be awesome. Oops. Sorry about that. My wrist just cracked, so it was really loud, sorry. I'm really curious to see how that corner up there looks in the render, actually. Looks... I still want to bump it brighter. Go brighter with it. Take this and just physically crank that up. Yeah, that looks cool. Cool. All right, let's see how it looks in the other... Oops. All right. Maybe just a bit too strong here. We're good. I think that's pretty good. I think that's gonna do it. I don't think I have much else. If I do move on and I come back to this and add something else, I will definitely let you know in a future video. Yeah, that looks great. Oh man, that looks awesome. Other than that, I think I'm going to end this one here. So, appreciate you guys sticking around for the end. Hope you guys get results similar to this. And I will see you in the next part where we move on to the body of the gun.